as the members of the board is we'll introduce ourselves to you, and then we'll have you introduce yourself to us. And then you will be talking to us, and then we will ask you questions after you finished your presentations, however long or limited they are. Is that okay with everybody? I'll begin because I'm talking, then I can stop. I'm Fraser O'Leary. I'm the chair of the Education Teacher Practice or Educator Practice Committee, which really right now has to do with teachers and may be expanded, I guess, in the new way that the committee is going to be labeled to enter schools into it too. So what we've been talking about, and I was in charge of the Teacher Retention Committee before last year, is what we can do to help teachers. I'll just leave it at that. I was a teacher. I am a teacher. I started teaching in DC public schools in 1970, and I taught until 2017 at a junior high and then a high school at Cardozo High School. I spent 40 years at Cardozo High School. I started teaching at UDC, and right after I became the baseball coach, those Firebirds on the panel know that the fabled baseball team of UDC, which stopped existing in 1985. And I started teaching in 1984, I would think, at UDC, and I've been teaching there almost all the way through till now. I don't have a class this spring, I'm sorry. I had 2 great classes in the fall, and I'm an English teacher. That's it for me. Ebony Rose.
Good afternoon. My name is Ebony Rose Thompson. I represent Ward 7 on the State Board of Education. I also serve as the vice president of the board. I am not a teacher, but my mom is, and she actually got her education degree from UDC, and she still teaches in Ward 7. I was the kid who was at school with her along with 2 of my sisters, and they used to test out their lessons on us. So I guess I'm a baby Firebird, maybe. Yeah.
Great. And Alistair?
Hi, Dr. Kelly, Dr. Burton, lovely to see you. And Dr. Musica, or Miss Musica, nice to meet you. I'm really grateful for your time. I know that you have so much on your plate and so much that you already do for your students, and this hour with you is really precious. And I know that you've helped inform a lot of our past work already, Dr. Burton and Dr. Kelly in particular, around our literacy work as well. So really grateful to get this time with you, and we will do our best to make the most of it.
Great. Okay. Well, Dr.
I
Kelly.
am here.
Okay. Emily, we have just introduced ourselves to our panel.
I know. I was here. I heard.
Oh, good.
I'm just going to go real quick, Fraser, and then I'll let our panelists get going. Okay. Do you not want me to?
We can't see you.
I know. So I'm off camera. I'm going to be driving in a minute to pick up my kid. And I just will say welcome. I echo what my colleague Representative Chang said about valuing your time, and really excited to hear from you. I am a former classroom teacher, currently in education equity and education inquiry and justice program. And I'll leave it at that. It's really excited to hear from you. And I represent Ward 1 on the state board. Thank you.
And you are a teacher right now too, right?
Yeah, I teach at Georgetown, like I said. Thanks, Fraser.
Dr. Kelly?
Sure. Good evening, well, afternoon, even afternoon, sorry. My mind has been going back and forth. I've had a rotation of kids on quarantine for the last month.
Oh,
Back and forth, back and forth. I'm truly excited to be here again to be able to share where we are with our programs at UDC. As Alistair mentioned earlier, I've been working with his team with literacy, which is definitely my passion. I started off at DCPS as a teacher, and then I became a literacy specialist and then joined the wonderful UDC Firebird family almost 8 years ago as a clinical instructor and program director for the undergrad and graduate programs. As I stated earlier, my passion is literacy, especially early literacy. And so I teach in the undergrad early childhood program and then also in the graduate early childhood program.
great. Dr. Burton.
Hello, everyone. Good to be here. My name is Anika Burton. I am the chair of the Division of Education, Health, and Social Work at the University of the District of Columbia. I am a former high school English teacher, because you guys keep leaving out my big kids, all you little people. So started teaching in Prince George's County many moons ago, taught in Chicago, Atlanta, New York, DC, and here I am at UDC, hoping to make the world a better place for kids everywhere, actually.
Oh, great. And Dr. Musica.
Oh, I wish I had a doctorate.
Oh,
Not yet.
Be careful what
so-
you wish for.
True. Hi, everyone. My name is Ann Musica. I am the graduate program coordinator for the MA in Educational Transformation at Georgetown, and our teacher residency program is part of that master's program. I'm also the program coordinator for another graduate program at Georgetown that focuses more on learning design and higher ed. So I kind of span the education space of K through 12 and higher ed. I do not have a background in K through 12 education. I have a background in sociolinguistics, specifically language policy, and I've worked in higher ed for pretty much my entire adult life. I just joined the program 2 years ago with Ed Transformation, but I'm here representing our students and very excited to be here.
Great. Okay, so I guess as they say, this is us. And we would like to, we're just going to sit back and listen to you about what your programs are offering now and what the future is in the programs and how it can positively affect the school system in the District of Columbia. Okay, so Dr. Kelly, we'll go in the same order.
Dr. Burton and I discussed this earlier, and she actually has a PowerPoint.
Oh,
And we
great.
would like to share. Is that okay?
Oh, sure.
She made me do it.
She's the boss. She's the chair. She tags me in. Unless she tags me in, then I jump in.
I am just going to share my screen because you are talking crazy right now. Wait, it won't let me share. Caitlin, can you give me share capabilities?
Yeah.
Please?
Can you try now?
Yep, sure can. Oh, here we go. All right, there's no sound, so you don't have to worry about that. And let me do this. All right, it's really brief. Ayana made me do it. Can you all see it? And I can't see you anymore, by the way, so I'll just assume we're okay. All right, so just education programs at UDC. We offer both undergraduate and graduate programs. We are intently focused on preparing teachers for urban schools, particularly in the District of Columbia. We have initial licensure programs. We are state approved and CAPE accredited. And in terms of our classes, we cater to working students. Many of our students are what some people call non-traditional, just slightly older than your typical undergraduate students. So our classes happen most often in the afternoon and evening. Our undergrad programs are traditional programs in that there are 4-year programs. We offer a BA in early childhood education, a BA in elementary education, and a BS in special education. At the graduate level, our graduate program is 1 year in length. We typically start in early August and end in June. Sometimes students are done in May, depending on them completing their student teaching hours. At the graduate level, we offer a Master of Arts in Early Childhood Education. And then we also offer a Master of Arts in Teaching in Elementary Education, English, Math, Music, Science, and Social Studies. In terms of the full scope of what we offer at UDC, we actually have a community college. So we go from the associates level. We have doctoral programs at UDC, but not in PK through 12 education. There's a higher ed one, sort of in urban leadership and something. But what you see on this screen, anything that you see shaded in what's yellow on my screen has to do with where we're moving. So those programs aren't quite here yet. But at the associates level, we do have degrees in early childhood education, but you could be another major and move into the education program that way. We are looking to add 2 minors and to tease apart our masters, because we actually get a lot of teachers who are already teachers of record. So they don't need quite what we're offering in an MAT program, but they go through it because they want to be at UDC, they want the masters, but we are looking to offer just like an MED for people who are already like certified teachers, and hopefully moving to eventually an EDD program as well. And we're also looking to bring online a few certificates. We already have a certificate in adult education, and that's through a partnership with OSSI, where they actually pay for people to go through our program and get that certificate. And we're looking to add some other certificates as well, like coaching and leadership, literacy, etc. You all know that we recently received some funding, and we're working now to finalize what that program is going to look like, but we're looking to offer tuition stipends to students, some intense praxis prep assistance, because we know that that tends to be the hurdle for many students, particularly students of color. Students who receive these funds from us, we're basically asking them to commit to at least 3 years post-graduation teaching in DC public or public charter schools. But as a part of this funding, they have to be DC residents, and they should have graduated from a DC public high school or DC public charter school, or have received, we just got clearance for this, their GED in DC. So that program will help people finish either a bachelor's degree or a master's degree and get them through the licensure process so that they can roll right back into DC schools. So that's like my quick down and dirty slideshow.
Yeah, and something that Dr. Burton didn't mention is that a lot of our students that come from our AA program, about 70%, they do matriculate to the undergraduate program, and they're already paraprofessionals in DCPS schools. And so they want to become lead teachers, so they want to continue to learn with us. And so part of that money that Dr. Burton just mentioned is that we're hoping to give them the scholarship so they can complete their BA degree in order to become teachers back in DC. So I think that's really exciting. A lot of students have shown tons of interest in doing that, especially because they've been parents for several years, and the biggest hurdle for them was that praxis exam. So now we're going to be offering that to them to help them reach that goal and go back into DCPS as lead teachers.
I think we'll hear from Georgetown, and then we're going to open it up for questions. And only because I got a billion questions, but only because I want us to see the overlap or non-overlap of the programs first. Is that okay with everybody? All right, Ms. Musica.
All right, I also prepared a PowerPoint just because that helps me think through things.
Sorry, I'm giving you privileges in just one moment.
No problem.
All right, you can try now.
All right, great. All right, is everyone seeing a slide? Great. Okay, so hi, as I already mentioned, I'm here representing Georgetown's teacher residency program. So Georgetown's teacher residency program was launched in 2017, so we're a pretty new program in the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences as part of our master's degree in educational transformation. We're the first program at Georgetown to offer a teaching license, which is really exciting. And this program was designed for students interested in ensuring that all children have the opportunities and resources that they need to thrive in schools and in life, and is centered around a residency-based model integrating experiential learning with rigorous coursework. So our program is a one-year residency-based program that runs from the beginning of July to the end of June. So over the course of just that one calendar year, students in the program earn a 30-credit master's degree and are prepared to pursue their teaching license in DC. So we currently offer preparation for 2 licensure areas, multilingual learners or ESL, and secondary science. And the program is designed to prepare educators skilled in promoting effective instructional practices for children with diverse needs in an urban context and pursuing a just and equitable education for all children. This is a little bit about the program structure. So as I mentioned, the program spends one calendar year. Students in our program take all of their coursework after 5 p.m. So all of the courses you're seeing in this program structure happen in the evening. In the first summer with us, so July and August, the teacher residency students take 2 classes. One, the culturally relevant approaches in education and social justice, is actually taken by not just our teacher residency students, but also students in our other concentration, which is called advocacy and policy. The second course is specific to the licensure path the teacher residency students are pursuing. So courses in orange are for the multilingual or ESL licensure, and courses in green are the secondary science licensure. So during the fall semester, students take a course on creating a productive classroom community, as well as their licensure specific class. And then the third class they take is their teaching practicum, where they focus on developing their professional identity as an educator, getting that proficiency in national standards, learning more about like the actual key assessments they need to pass in order to get their teaching license in DC. During the spring semester, they take 2 licensure-specific courses, as well as a continuation of the teaching practicum from the fall semester. So the teaching practicum really stretches the full school year. In their second summer, so their last semester with us, covering May and June, all teaching residency students take Advocating for Learners and Learning, which again, they take with students in the other concentration of the master's, Advocacy and Policy, and a course on child and adolescent development. So the core of our program is really the residency experience. So students in our teacher residency program are embedded in either GCPS or public charter K-12 classrooms as full-time instructional assistants. And we refer to them as resident co-teachers as part of a 1-year supervised field-based experience. So during this time at whatever school they're placed in, they learn with and from a mentor teacher who is from the school, while engaging in intensive school-based co-teaching and also completing their master's degree at night. So our graduates are really trained to be equity-focused educators, skilled in nurturing classroom cultures, assessing student learning, particularly focusing on the culturally and linguistic diversity of DC. And they get this particular training with the help of their mentor co-teacher who they work with throughout the school year. These are just some of the schools that we've had students at so far. So it's a mix of public schools and public charter schools in DC. Program size, as I mentioned, we're still a young, small program. So we've had 16 students so far total. And that includes this year's cohort. And students come to us with a range of backgrounds and experience levels. So some of them have teaching experience from getting a bachelor's in education at another school. Some did programs like AmeriCorps or Teach for America. Some have been serving as instructional aides in DC schools and want to pursue licensure. And some have come to us from other states where they had their licensure and they want to get their master's degree and also add that additional licensure to their skill set. I particularly want to tell you guys about Project Elect, which is new this year. So with support from a Department of Educational National Professional Development Grant, we've started Project Elect, or the English Learners Educational Excellence Capital Teacher Training Project. It's a long title. Project Elect will transform the education of English learners in DC public schools and public charter schools by preparing, we are planning 36 new teachers through our MA licensure residency program and strengthening the professional repertoire of up to 100 in-service teachers, so teachers who are already working in DC public schools, through a hybrid professional development certificate program. And we just found out about this in October, so we're very excited. So as I mentioned, there's the way this is all structured is this MA program has 2 concentrations, learning and teaching, the teacher residency program, and advocacy and policy, separate concentration. Within the learning and teaching concentration, we have that MA plus licensure pursuit, which is what we've had up until this point. And now we're adding on also that professional development certificate. So who does this new project serve? So our MA plus licensure program will serve 2 different populations. One is aspiring teachers with linguistically or culturally diverse backgrounds, and also a bachelor's or bachelor of science, and they will work as full-time resident teachers working with multilingual students, or new teachers with less than 3 years of experience in DCPS without a graduate degree or an ESL licensure who are currently full-time teachers, working with multilingual students. The professional development program will serve full-time teachers working with multilingual students who have 3 or more years of experience and want to develop that skill set with multilingual students without necessarily pursuing the ESL licensure. We have a couple of goals for this coming year that I might mention to you guys. 2 of them are related to Project Elect, this new grant that we've gotten. So recruiting additional students, particularly linguistically and culturally diverse students who are really dedicated to the DC educational landscape. Developing that professional development certificate program for DCPS teachers to really help them kind of beef up their teaching for these diverse students. And then we'd really like to work a little bit more with the schools that we work with to develop a group of dedicated mentor teachers, so that we have, kind of the same mentor teachers year after year. So it's professional development for those teachers to be working with our students, and our students know that the teachers they're working with know our program well, know what they need to be working on to pursue licensure. All right, and that was my hopefully brief, but very dense PowerPoint.
This is great to hear. Alistair, why don't you ask your questions, and then Ebony Rose, and then I'll be last. And then I don't know about rounds of questions or anything, but anything that all of us don't cover. If we don't, then we won't.
Sure. Yeah, happy to start. My question is macro level and very short, which is what resources do you need next?
So I'll jump in. I think what the resources are going to be at this point for us will be along the lines of sort of human capital resources in terms of relationships, conversations, understandings about what we're doing, where we're moving. There's always sort of this block with DCPS for some reason. It's funny, I'm actually working on a project that's looking at the history of Black education in DC. And there was a time when students from, it wasn't UDC then, but what is essentially UDC now, it was a direct pipeline. Like, it was understood that they had jobs waiting for them when they graduated. And I understand there are more, players in the game now, but we keep asking for sort of this, these preliminary conversations, especially when you're talking about all of us doing these grow your own programs. Like, why wouldn't we give at least the first interview, the first shot, the first conversation to those students who have graduated from DC schools, said they want to go back into DC schools, are educating themselves in DC institutions of higher education. So I think just some of those conversations, that brokering of those relationships, so that our teachers, our students, as they're moving into, the professional realm, are getting what they need to secure employment, or at least a conversation. Because there are all kinds of hiccups that happen that we spend a lot of time just trying to figure out, it's crazy. So that for me would be beneficial in terms of next steps for our students.
I want to interrupt for a second. Maybe I want to alter the thing because I've got a couple of questions about your answer. So why don't we do it that way rather than just, so if either Ebony Rose or Alistair or I have a question, we'll question the answer first. All right, Ebony Rose, do you have anything? Alistair, was that, and you don't have to stop asking questions, but I'm saying, does that make sense?
Yeah,
Because
I mean, I'm happy to stay on topic here. So as far as so I'm curious, when you talk about them being able to that pipeline, that makes sense to me as far as the intent. And I'm curious what students have identified as some of the obstacles they're coming up against as they try to fulfill that vision, right? I'd just be curious to hear more. And maybe it's not just, and I know you all have a much smaller cohort because it's a younger program at Georgetown, but
well, we have small cohorts too, so I will say that.
Yes, you did share that with us before, but it's a younger program. Yeah. But what are you all seeing as far as people's challenges with actually being able to matriculate into employment in DC in the teaching profession?
So, and Ayana, you can jump in here as well. I know that, and I don't know what the system is like now, but I know that there were times when, however the system was set up, I guess sort of like a screening thing, if you will. And so if you didn't answer the question a certain way, you kind of got a thanks, but no thanks reply, and so, and, a lot of us have applied to those jobs where they, have some sort of internal computer generated thing that's looking for certain words, and then it'll kick you out if you don't. And so that's problematic to me, especially when you talk about teachers. I think you need conversations. And so it's some of our students have run into things where somebody has come back and said, oh, well, no, you need to understand how the system works. And so if it's a thing of sort of this, I don't want to say playing a game, but plugging in the right words so that you can get to the next level, that's problematic to me. And Ayana, if you want to jump in, because you deal a lot more with moving to the next level.
I think it's kind of split. I think some of our students who are new to DC and are not currently working in the system, they have a little harder time because there are so many other non-traditional programs and their names stand out so much bigger than UDC. And so when they go to apply and they have a conversation oh, where did you graduate, UDC? I think they feel, I don't know how to politically
say it.
I guess they feel that the interviewer is kind of shunning them away because they went to UDC. However, on the flip side, we get a lot of phone calls from principals that know our students that have been there and hey, can you send us some student teachers from your building? We need subs, we need teachers next year. Do you have any building? We've seen your work. So I think that when people don't understand or see the data from our students and what they can do, they'll see the name and then kind of, I guess, shun the students away a little bit. And so that's what I've heard from some of our students who are not currently in DCPS right now. And then the thing that Dr. Burton was mentioning was more of an application issue with DCPS, especially for our graduate students. If they're not finishing until May and they have to complete an application and they click, I'm not done yet, or I don't have my certification at this time, they're not even offered an interview. And so we've had conversations with the HR at DCPS. And so they said they'll try to filter that out. I'm not sure if that actually happened or not. We haven't been able to follow up with them, but that was some of the issues with the application process. So I think when Dr. Burton is mentioning, I guess, just helping us share all the positive work that's coming out of UDC, we sing it at the top of our voices all the time. A lot of principals who know us and know our students really well, they always look back to us and say, hey, can you come do professional developments? Come read to our students. Send us some of your students that work with our children here. Those who don't know us really well may look at UDC or may go to another bigger college like Trinity or Georgetown or American University.
American is the darling of DCPS. They are. I mean,
I guess I was going to ask, just as a check for my understanding. So both of these sound like screening issues to me, because like one is like literally like, what are the things you have to check off in the system, to your point about when your degree is finished. But then the other one, honestly, is a question of the biases of the screener. So yes, a principal may be saying to you, and I know a bunch of teachers, principals, school level staff who have come through UDC over years, and for them, it might be a respected program or pathway, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's the same people, and because those offices, those applications are screened centrally, and they might not look at you all as with that same prestige, quite frankly, as other programs. So both of those sound like screening things to me. And then just a quick follow-up question. I've heard, to your point about the timing, I've heard that DCPS is typically the last offer that people get as far as when they hire the teachers. Are you seeing that to be true? Because like I know people who have gotten an offer from PG or and they're still waiting to hear back from DCPS, and not everyone is in the same position as far as being able to hold off on making such a big financial decision. Is that something you're running into?
I think there just seems to be different areas of backlog at DCPS, and that is from clearances for student teaching, which this year was a nightmare because they've added some new things, to certification, like just, things that, and, we know how bureaucracy works, but, so there just always seems to be like these issues of backlog, and then people they get frantic, they worry, and then they go somewhere else. We have a great relationship with Prince George's County, and a lot of our students leave our program and go to Prince George's County now. And so, because of some things like that, like they'll hear faster, and when you're trying to make a living, you're going to jump when someone offers. So
yeah, and I think that's consistent across a lot of the teacher prep programs in DC. And we meet monthly or every other month as a group just to kind of talk through some of those issues with OSSI. And so over the last couple of meetings and years, we had discussed, if our students are coming out of a DC teacher prep program, how come they can't be screened first? A lot of the teachers that are putting applications from other states, you'll see them get hired quicker in DC than those coming out of a DC program. And so we've had questions about that several times. And I know OSSI has been working on that as well, so that our students will at least get the first interview before anyone else. And I haven't seen any new data or information about it recently, but I'm going to follow up now that you brought up that question with OSSI the next time that we meet.
I'm about to cry because this really hurts me. I graduated from American University, and I was a student teacher at Garner-Patterson junior high school with, and I got hired right after I finished my student teaching. But I was also taking classes from the District of Columbia Teachers College. And when I first started teaching 100 years or 50 years ago now, 3/4 of the teachers in DCPS were DC teachers graduates. And the stumbling blocks that y'all are talking about are unconscionable. And I just wrote down that I would really like for y'all to come as a panel to our public meeting so that we can get the word out a little better. Because I think that that's extremely important.
Sorry, Frazier, I have to
Yes.
drop off. I have an emergency. I will look at the recording after. I really want to thank you for your time and answering at least one of my questions. I'm glad to have had at least this bit of an opportunity, and I apologize for having to drop so abruptly. Something just came up.
Okay, Ebony Rose.
Sorry, and thank you.
It's all right. Bye-bye. Alistair, do you have
I want to be take this as an opportunity to really workshop that, Frazier, because I think it's a great idea. I think we have so many strong resources here at home that we should be highlighting, and I'm curious. I'm curious if we could elaborate what the barriers have been. I know you touched on this, Dr. Burton, but is it a policy shift? Is it a prioritization? Is it funding? Is it a funding mechanism? Is it a guarantee? Right?
Yeah, no, I wouldn't even look for a guarantee, but I would say not a guarantee of employment, but more so, I think, well, one, any student I think who is like getting educated in DC definitely should be getting, first priority for consideration, if you will, so maybe there's a first round of interviews. I think that as programs like ours who are getting funding, and I know OSSI is about to roll out grants where they're doing grow your own, it boggles my mind that if we send somebody through a grow your own program, we wouldn't give them at least first shot at an interview, So just like when counties have positions that open, there's always a couple of days ahead of time that people who are already in the county, sort of get first dibs at interviewing or looking at what the positions are going to be across the county before it goes public. So I'm just saying, same thing for at least the grow your own programs. Like, if people have identified as DC residents who want to go back into teaching, then why wouldn't those people sort of get first consideration for, interviews? And I understand, there's a lot to interviewing and making sure that, someone's a good fit. So I would never say they should automatically get a job, but just the first consideration of the interview before it's made public to everybody, or if they're doing those career fairs, give those people like a day ahead of time to come in and meet with, the principals and the schools and things like that before, like Ayana said, some of these out of town people, swoop in and, already have their credentials or whatever and can take these jobs. I do think one of the things that at some point, and I don't know if this is the time to have the conversation, but there are some bias issues that we definitely need to sort of start having some real honest conversations about. We keep talking about wanting to have more males of color in the classroom, but where? Like, I want people to be real honest. Like, I think people are very particular about where they want those males of color. We had an incident on Monday where one of our student teachers was racially profiled. He's been in the building for 3 weeks, and another teacher called security on him as a suspicious Black man in the building. Like, that shouldn't happen, but that's at a Northwest school. That doesn't happen when we send our candidates to, Ward 7 or 8. So they're like bigger systemic things that we just need to have real honest conversations, because we can't keep saying that we want and need something, but we're not supporting it on the back end. So if we say we want grow your own, then you got to support it and give them a pipeline. If you say you want people of color, then you got to have schools, all schools ready to welcome, people of color. So that's my soapbox for today.
And
Emily, are you back? Okay.
Dr. O'Leary, may I follow up on that? I'm curious,
can I
Ms.
just,
Musica, if
Alistair, let me just plug something in quickly,
Sure.
right? For me, one of the biggest problems with what is being talked about right now is the people who are running the systems are not from DC. The leadership in DCPS is, there's hardly anyone in the whole hierarchy of DCPS that has been in the District of Columbia for more than 5 years. And I think that's one horrible bias that happens in it. I just want to throw that in. Alistair, go on. I'm sorry.
Ms. Musica, I'm curious what your take is on that, and if that is a similar challenge or interest for Georgetown, or how you deal with that.
Yeah, I mean, so thinking about the various things that Dr. Burton said, I was like, yeah, some of that applies to us, and some of that we have kind of the opposite problem.
Right.
Like, people see the Georgetown name and think, oh, I'm just going to go get my master's at Georgetown, and don't focus on the fact that like we as a program are very focused on the DC community, because as we all know, historically, Georgetown has not necessarily been as focused in DC as our home. And so that was something we really wanted with this program, was like, it's the DC educational landscape that we are really focused on. So we get students who are like, oh yeah, I want to become an ESL teacher or whatever, or just like apply kind of at random, and they say, oh, Georgetown, check, like that's a good school, check, but don't really think about us as a DC education preparation program. And so I think some of that's, since we're new and young, messaging, but I think we just need to figure out. I will say, have not had problems with, for instance, racial profiling of our students, because our students tend to be young white women. Because of Georgetown, because of the cost of a Georgetown education, we tend to attract a certain kind of student. I personally am hoping that'll be different now that we have this money from the National Professional Development Grant. We have a lot more money that we can give in tuition to people who are already in DC, who are already teaching in DC, who come from culturally and linguistically diverse backgrounds. So there's that part of it. And then, so we have Georgetown, the brand name recognition, but not the DC Teachers College recognition that UDC has. And so a lot of the schools that we're working with are like, basically like, who are you? You're sending me a student, what's happening here? When, this is a pretty standard format of they're getting a master's degree and their license, and so I think some of that communication is getting kind of lost as to who we are as a program. And I feel like we've had better luck with some of the charter schools we've worked with, just in terms of like, this is what our program is. This is what we need from you. Like, we need a mentor teacher. This student is a resident co-teacher. They work as an instructional aide. Here's the gradual release of responsibility the students do. Here's the coursework they're doing at night. Here's what they're aiming for at the end. And I feel like we're kind of missing those relationships with DCPS because, of course, the charter schools have a lot less of that hierarchy involved, right?
So it sounds to me, Dr. O'Leary, like part of our work behind the scenes before we convene another panel and take more of our panelists' time is to do some of the work in talking with our colleagues at DCPS, and sorting out sort of, what is the appetite and interest to be building a more either a formal or informal partnership to be prioritizing local hires and folks who have been trained locally. Does that seem like the right next step?
We've got it. That was one of my questions, was about, because I'm hearing about programs I never knew about from UDC and from Georgetown. and I'm a supposed educator, and I'm on the State Board of Education. Okay, and I know about UDC's program, which is just really UDC used to have a thriving teacher education program, and then it was dropped. So it's not so it's really almost, it's not brand new, but it's close to brand new. And so I think that the messaging, we've got to force the messaging on people that don't want to hear the message. So I was just bringing it up as a panel so that we could get the word out in a wider range than in this little Zoom meeting. But I agree with you completely, Alistair. We've got to, I think we, and I'm talking about you and Ebony Rose and Emily and I, need to talk to some people, especially in DCPS, about why.
And I don't want to put the work where we're here to help. I don't want to put the work back on the three of you, but I'm curious if from what you've seen is it's a DCPS decision or it's an OSSI decision? Is it whose ball is whose court is the ball in? There we go. That's the idiom. Yeah.
I think it's more of a DCPS decision and not necessarily at the school level. I think it's more at the central office. And I say that because there's a lot of non-traditional teacher prep programs that have direct connection to the district office for one reason or another. That could be, I won't name any names, but could be maybe they just went to school together. They may have formed a partnership because they went to the same teacher prep program. The staff at UDC, especially in the education department, we have been singing our song. We have been in front of principals. They know who we are. I think the roadblock comes more with the district office when we try to make partnerships than anything else.
Okay.
Is that the Office of Teaching and Learning?
So the Office of Teaching and Learning, there's a office for school partnerships as well. And then just the HR hiring.
Well, the HR hiring, we don't have time to talk about that right now.
Yeah, so it's a combination. Like I think there is not one direct answer to the question because there are so many different players.
Dr. O'Leary, what that makes me think is actually the next panel we convene should actually be with them.
I agree. You know how I feel about that, Alistair. I want to hear from the people who are making the decisions. It's just hard to get them to come to a panel, but we have to try. You're right. You're talking about our next meeting with this committee. I
exactly. And I don't know actually, Darren or Caitlin, if you're willing to chime in, and to the three panelists, those are two amazing staff members of the DC SBOE. If you two have any input on how we can be supporting this vision.
Thanks, Alistair. I guess just from listening, so much of the work is like relationship building, and I'd love for us to build really strong relationships with DC's teacher prep programs. But also, I don't know if this would be helpful I don't know if this is allowed from the board perspective too, but if we could do some sort of like communications effort or campaign and to like really spotlight UDC's program, the Grow Your Own efforts. I mean, in Georgetown Project Elect.
I'd love if our committee did that. And helped get the word out.
Yeah, I would love to do some sort of communications thing too. I mean, even if it's just like a regular resource share, when board members do site visits to schools, plugging it in any way we can, just because, yeah, I think that this is just such important work. So, I mean, that's my immediate take on it. I too, like Emily, need some time to process, but yeah, that's my take.
Darren, may I put you on the spot too?
I just want to echo everything Caitlin said, and definitely I think going back to staff and just posing that question to everyone and just mull that over, I think that might be our best bet.
Okay, great. And then back to the three of you, if there's anything else you think we ought to be considering as we regroup to sort out how it sounds like a big piece of it is get the word out, build the relationships, highlight the importance of this, raise it as a priority that we should be thinking about. I can tell you, I think my constituents in Ward 2 at least, and Fraser, I would assume this to be true in Ward 4, would be very supportive of these efforts to be strengthening our local public institutions and our local Georgetown as well, to be able to have more of these resources to build our and strengthen our teacher pipeline, right? So really highlighting that. I think I don't see I see a lot of potential there, and I see our role perhaps as taking what you've told us, the three of you, back to our team and start to map out how we can do some of that groundwork together and support you in this. I
think also one of the things that sometimes people worry about is, oh, they're all doing the same thing. And like when I heard, Ann talk, like it's different, like what they're doing is different than what we're doing. And so if people understood, like, this is what we're doing over here and this is what they're doing over there. So, it makes more sense in some cases that, oh, if this is a need, you need to be looking at graduates of this school, and if this is a need, you need to be looking at graduates of this school. So not to say that they can't do multiple things, but to understand that we're not really in competition. You know what I mean? Like we're serving very different needs of the community, but we're all in it ultimately to make education in DC better. And so instead of just picking a name like, oh, they went to Georgetown, so they're the right fit, or they went to American, they're the right fit, like really understand what we're offering, so that then people can make informed choices, but at least give all of the kids, the opportunity to come first before you go hire somebody from like Texas, like that's crazy.
And that makes a ton of sense, right? And we touch on that with the structured literacy training, right, as well. And so making sure that, and I want to highlight what Darren wrote here, which is in part, so, and I don't know if this is a commitment we can make as a committee, Dr. O'Leary, but to be able to spend some of our resources to do some of the research on how are other states approaching this, and what are some of the tools that other states have taken on to highlight and grow these kinds of programs, and use that as at least a launching pad to be able to highlight this work. But I think I personally am really committed to this. I think it solves multiple problems for us. Maybe not in the short, immediate term, right? But we can't only be, I don't think that putting out the fires right now is mutually exclusive from building the structures that allow us to prevent those fires from starting in the future. So I think it's really worth our time and investment as our committee, and I would go so far as to say that this could be a focus for us this year to really push and work on, Dr. O'Leary. But I saw Emily hopping in off the camera while she was in the car. I don't know if that meant she had something to say.
I think she just left again.
Cutting her off.
I think she just left, Alistair.
Okay.
She's not on the screen anymore.
Okay.
I will say in terms of, oh, sorry, go ahead.
One thing that, just to switch it a little bit, is in Ward 4, we have 3 bilingual schools. 4 really. Powell Elementary is a bilingual school. McFarland Middle School is a bilingual school. And not in Ward 4. In Ward 1, the Columbia Heights Education Campus is a bilingual school. Do you have, and when you were talking, because it seems to me that UDC has a ELL program that could feed into the Georgetown elite. I see those 2 E's together, so I would call it elite program. Does that make sense? Because I would think that, have y'all been in touch at UDC with Powell and McFarland check, and DCI, which is another Ward 4 school, by the way, the District Columbia International School, which is a bilingual school too, with their staff, because one of the things that what Alistair was talking about is it is an emergency as far as teachers are concerned, because there are a lot of vacancies in these schools because they don't have teachers. And the other thing that I mentioned or I wrote down was substitutes, because I know that your UDC students, now all you need to be a substitute in DCPS is an associate's degree. So the students who already have their associate's degree from the community college can make up to $300 a day as a substitute. And I know that I was a student teacher at Garner-Patterson and supposedly did a good job and was hired right away. And I know that if being a substitute, teaching is hard, I guess. Other people say it is. I never thought it was hard. But substituting, I know is hard. All right. That's like ridiculously hard. So if you can make it as a substitute, just like they used to say, you know, if you can make it at Garner-Patterson or at Cardozo, then, you know, you can teach any place in the country. It goes backwards from what Alistair was talking about, because when you talk, if you can do it in a DCPS school, and then, you know, teaching in Arlington County or Montgomery County or in, you know, Hollywood or someplace like that, it's like, you know, been there, done that. And it's the greatest job in the world. And we throw obstacles about people who I didn't grow up wanting to be a teacher. I wanted to be a baseball player, period. That was it. All right. But when I went back to American University and I walked into this professor's class, Introduction to British Literature, I got bit. All right. I got the bug. And he was a fabulous teacher. And we need to remove all the obstacles that are there for people to become teachers. And obviously, I'm an advocate for what y'all do completely. I mean, this isn't even preaching to the choir. This is like sitting in the choir and let the people with voices sing. But we've got to get the word out about this. And I think that I'm going to look at the train. They're recording this, and Caitlin and Darren do a fabulous job of making transcripts of it, because I'm going to call the mayor on it. Because a lot of times the mayor doesn't know what's happening underneath her as far as DCP. I know what's not happening at DCPS. I live it every day, and I call them on it every day too. But it's, you know, I have what we've heard today from just your little teeny PowerPoints. You know, if those everybody in DCPS needs to see those little teeny PowerPoints. I mean, everybody, I went to my teacher education program at American University, had nothing to do with teaching in a DC public school. Nothing at all. Thank God I had a cooperating teacher at American University, Juanita Fletcher, an old, at that time, to me, I'm older than she now, I'm sure. But at that time, she was an older Black woman, and she took me under her wing. And that's how it works. You got to have mentors, obviously. But see, y'all are the mentors. But you get frustrated. I know how frustrating it is. You know, we're trying to get our teachers hired, and they can't. It takes so long to get them cleared for a security clearance. For God's sake, you just take your daggone fingerprints. You know, it doesn't take that long. If you were a criminal, your fingerprints would be back in a half an hour. But we have teachers waiting to get to teach in DC public schools right now since August that haven't been cleared. And I'm sure you know who they are. So I guess I'm the only one left on the panel. Everybody's deserted me.
Yeah, I want to echo something that Alistair, who's no longer with us, mentioned. I mean, I know my colleagues at UDC mentioned like manpower, like personnel at the beginning in getting the word out and, you know, figuring all of this out. this is a problem I think we're having on our end too, is that like our program is 4 faculty and me. So getting all of this information, making sure people know who we are, that's a lot of individual emails and relationships that we are each trying to build. And so I think with support from the State Board of Ed saying like, no, look, we have the UDC program, we have the Georgetown program, it kind of gives those individual emails we're sending out a lot more weight.
Oh, trust me, you got the support right. We've been, obviously, I mean, I know some of you couldn't make it, we had to postpone the meetings a couple of while, and we're going to be meeting, I hope, with Howard and American University, but this is the key. This is the key to solve that problem with the teacher shortage, especially with teacher retention, because teacher retention in DC is off the charts. And that's during the pandemic. A lot of people hung in virtual learning, but I know there are a lot of schools that have lost people. Between Christmas and the opening of school in January. People just said, I'm out. And they had another job. And that's not what we're trying to do. I mean, I'm I'm the wrong person to talk about teachers as far as throwing mud at them. I don't throw mud at any teachers. I know what we do. And I know but I really think the thing that I mentioned earlier about the lack of support from the central office and DCPS is a huge problem. And it's got to be solved. Now, let me ask a question now. Somebody finishes the program at UDC. At Georgetown, is there an opening for someone to come to the Georgetown program because they have the UDC program in ELL? Because those are the only
UDC
two.
Undergraduate program in ELL.
Right.
We would love that because that's someone that we know is invested in DC, has that background, knows about that cultural diversity, that linguistic diversity. We would love DCPS students to come to our teacher residency program.
Have y'all met before? I'm not trying to out anybody.
I've met some of your colleagues before through the unit head meeting. I saw the presentation that was actually presented last time that we met with OSSI. So I've met some of
Dr. Wesley Nero did that presentation.
Yes, and so a lot of the teacher prep programs, we do meet, like I said before, with OSSI, kind of just to discuss some of the same issues that we're talking about here. So I don't directly know Ms. Misaka, but I do know some of her colleagues, and we've shared in contact information, just kind of talking about our programs and how we can support each other. I think that as a whole, we're just trying to ensure that we are producing effective teachers for students in DC. And so we do work together. We do try to collaborate, but they go up against some of the same issues that we're going through with DCPS.
Right. And I know that your audiences are different. That's all right. Just because your audiences are different doesn't mean the objective isn't the same. Let me see. I've got I take notes on little index cards. So let me make sure I haven't. So at UDC, you had one thing on the slide about, but on the first slide, it had early childhood, ELL, and special ed. And then there was another box, and I couldn't tell the boxes were different colors. Is the one that underneath that it had like English and science and math? Is that can someone get an undergraduate degree in teaching English?
So at the undergraduate level at UDC, our degrees are special education, early childhood education, and elementary education.
Right.
So if they wanted to do a content area, what we encourage them to do is major in that content area. So like be an English major and then go into the master's program for the 1 year after to get the master's in teaching with a concentration in English. And it
Okay,
actually
good.
works out for them because we have scholarship money specifically for UDC undergrads who go into UDC's master's program. So
How do the UDC undergrads know that?
we we go to majors meetings, we advertise, we send out email blasts. Like when I go to the chairs meetings, I talk to the chairs of the other divisions and tell them, but you're right, it's like the weirdest thing. We have all these students both at the associates level and the undergraduate level that we're like, come hear about the program. And we typically get like a handful of our own students, but we get people from everywhere else. And so that is one thing that boggles the mind, especially for people who are like English majors, because they could get their master's for free. The Board of Trustees has a program where if you did not major in an education major for undergrad, you could get the master's in teaching for free.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
And the reason one of the reasons I'm saying that is that I taught in the REACH program this summer for high school graduates who came into, we had just a handful of students. It was a fabulous experience for my 5 students who were in my class, I think. And they did really well when they went to school in the fall. But when I asked because I taught freshmen in the fall, when I asked my 2 freshman classes if they knew about the REACH program, nobody knew about it.
Right.
And it was a free program. The kids got paid for it. If they passed 2 classes, they got 6 credits. So they started their freshman fall semester with 6 college credits already, but nobody knew about it.
Right.
And so it's not just a DCPS problem, all right? When we're talking about it, the entire education OSSE, all right? And OSSE has all of the LEAs, and DCPS is, the huge LEA, and the rest of them, I mean, like KIP is a big LEA, and Friendship is a big LEA for the charters. But nobody knows about anything.
Right. I literally spent whatever the last holiday or snow day we had and sent individual emails to every single charter school in DC about our program. Like, could you please pass this on to your faculty? And so I've been getting some return on that, but that is terribly time consuming. When, like you said, I'm sure there's somebody in an office somewhere with a push of a button who could just, now DCPS, I'm working with, they send out a newsletter and we're finally on that blast. But for the charter school stuff, like it is literally man hours. When I know somebody has to have a master list.
Yeah, so there's a master list on OSSE's website of all approved teacher prep programs in this area, but I'm not sure if it's just, if you want to Google it, somebody would probably have to just research it on their own. But that is an interesting question to see if there's someone in the office who can share that information out to schools and other LEAs. But it is there.
One of the real problems.
Oh, somebody just put it in the chat.
Is
I reference it all the time.
Oh yeah, so it's there. I've seen it. I see it all the time.
But one of the real problems is teachers don't have time to read those emails. And if they see an email from OSSE or from DCPS or whatever, unless it's got a emergency weather forecast or something like that. And what we deal with parents during the pandemic, everything was done online. Most of my parents in Ward 4, especially east of Rock Creek Park, because we have a couple of schools west of Rock Creek Park, but especially east of Rock Creek Park, they don't know how to get online. The school system assumed that everybody knew how to do a Zoom conference. I don't know when you started doing Zoom conferences, but my first couple of months on Zoom conferences, it's been 2 years now. Oh, those are tragedies. I was cutting off and going away and trying to find the link and all that other stuff. And now I sort of know how to do a Zoom conference, although sharing a screen is beyond my comprehension. But I know that I think that I've sort of we've talked about almost all of my questions. let me just make sure. But I think for UDC, it would be really helpful, and I can hook you up with the principals at those bilingual schools. Just to have them know about the fact that they could have an instructional assistant, right? Who's a student in your program. Am I reading that correctly?
Yes.
Yeah, because we actually have a whole contingency coming up from the associates level that are bilingual, that they gave
Oh,
us.
fabulous.
Yeah, so we have a whole group that's about to transition over, so.
And the great thing about UDC now is UDC is the most multilingual school in the United States, I'm sure. Maybe in New York it was, but my goodness, I mean, in my class, I had 18 people in one of my classes last fall, and 2 of them were African-American from DC, and the rest of them were from countries all over the world. And so you've got that piece of coal that just needs all of that pressure to become diamonds. And we'll do everything we can to help you make diamonds out of all of, but it's a battle with the system, but that's what I signed on for. And I'm one of those people when I walk in the room, that they have an OSH moment. I don't know if you know what an OSH moment is, but you can try to figure it out. But we'll, I really appreciate it. And I'd love to, once we get off of Zoom, especially at UDC, hope that I'll be teaching this summer and next fall, but I'd love to sit down with y'all and bounce stuff around. And I'll do everything I can, whatever that means. But you've got a voice, and not just me, all of the people on this committee definitely are your voices and that's almost half of the board. There are 9 people on the board and there are 4 people on the committee. So do you have any questions for me as far as the State Board of Education or this committee? If not, I'm retired. I don't have anything to do, so I could talk for hours, but I know y'all have jobs and things like that. And it's almost.
Aaron, did you want to say something earlier? I'm sorry, I thought I saw your hand.
Oh, really? I can't see a hand.
I accidentally hit the raise hand button. I did, you know what? I meant to share something when Alistair asked. Just other thoughts. I guess I'd be remiss to not mention this. I went to a webinar earlier this morning on equitable education finance. And one thing they mentioned was just having a clear example of the issue for the public to wrap their heads around. So you mentioned a few examples earlier. I think just perhaps we could follow up with you and just get those examples from you at some point of just issues with the system.
Oh, good. Transparency. When you were talking, Dr. Burton, all I could think about was the NFL coaches having a friend in the room, for God's sakes. And because that just blew up like 2 days ago, I guess. And but it's unconscionable that our students / college students who want to be teachers are stymied by things that shouldn't be stymies. So we'll do everything we can to assist you in getting rid of those stymies. That's a golf term. I don't know if you know that or not, but it's like when a tree is in your way or something like that. So so that you can have a shot right to the green and score a hole in one. That's the end of my metaphor. I really appreciate your time and your expertise. This was completely not completely eye-opening, but just enlightening. And we will get back to you. And I hope we can get a transcript or highlights of the conversation, and we'll send that to you too. And if you could pass the word about people getting in touch with the State Board of Education. Dr. Mason has come to the State Board a couple of times to talk about UDC. I have him in my class every time I teach, he comes and talks to the class. And those are always fascinating because when I was talking about like the mayor doesn't know, when the students say, well, we couldn't do this because of, and it's like the first time he's heard it. Because when you get higher and higher in rank, people are afraid to tell you that you don't have any clothes on. Sorry, I did throw another metaphor in. All right. Okay, ladies, anything? I just appreciate your time and hope we can see you again.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Sure.
having us.
Yeah,
Sure,
thank you
Mom.
all so much.
Oh, this has been fascinating. Have a
Bye-bye.
great weekend.
You too.
Too. Bye.